And we're live, and good evening, Sensei Al Bob. And I want to invite you to this evening's Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. To remind you that this is for your entertainment and edification. This represents nothing that you should believe in. I am just a griot. Don't believe anything I say. And you should sit down, relax, get yourself a nice libation, put the kiddies to bed, and only have grown-ups around. So how are we all doing? The post-apocalyptic. Good evening, Sensei Bob and Cadre the Adept. Kind. Yes, we're kind. We are. I'm trying to wake up here. We're about to have a snowstorm here, and I had to stay downtown to do something. Hopefully, they will close everything and I can just stay in bed. I'm just tired. I just watch the same thing go on and on. But if we wake up, we'll be fine. Everyone kind of believes what they're told. Good old Werner von Braun. I remember when he was telling us that he really wasn't a Nazi. He just wanted to go into outer space. And then when he met the aliens when he was in his 20s, he believed them when they said that, doesn't matter how you get there, it's the outcome that counts. If you gotta kill 60 or 70 or a billion people, it doesn't matter. It's just 60 or 70 billions of people. It's the outcome. It's the birth of the new Reich. It's that it'll last 1,000 years, and there'll be order and peace. So there has to be a lot of people who die first. And he kidded himself because they gave him technology that he really wanted to play with. Hey, Twitchy. Yeah. And the Second World War started like the First World started. Just like the Boer War and the 100 Years' War and the Spanish-American War and the war to conquer North America from the savages. The only good Indian was the dead one. And Yugoslavia and 70s and all that death in Sarajevo and all that death between the Hutus and the Tutsis of Rwanda and all that death in Syria, the disruption. Oh, that death in Palestine. The man with the big gun is always the one who blames the small child who's in their way. It's the other that always gets blamed. I'm just tired. You know, when I'm involved in doing something, moving the innocence out of the way, standing up to the bully with a smile on my face, making them feel better so they don't have to be the bully. Oh, then it's alright. Letting the pain. Oh! You know, when you die 6 times, it's not easy. So has anyone there read any of my cuts from xratted.blogspot.com? One of my 26 novels. I sure like to know. You know, a few people have commented on my Gmail, the Dude Awake 42. Boy, that's really good stuff. Well, you know, I don't want to know if it's really good stuff. I want to know what you think. You know, it's like it's a code. I want to know if you were able to break it. You know, the first story that I told you on John's channel was, you know, the old crone story. You know, and she saw me trying to break the code in one of the ancient Celtic Lord books. The fact that that's the book I wanted to look at and not any one of the other 20 million books that were in the deep library at Trinity in Dublin, and that I was turning it around, looking for the purchase. You know, that's the place where you can stick your crowbar in and pry open the information. And that's why I wrote those novels. They're all like little casts that you can pry open. Each sentence is a metaphor that's encoded. And it's on many layers, many levels, versus the story, and then the story behind the story, and then each sentence. You know, in Hebrew, each letter represents a number. So you have all these numbers and words, and those words make equations. And that's what Kabbalah is, right? And it's geometry. It's not algebra or trigonometry. To understand the great laws of love's co-creation, it's all in geometry, not in algebra or trigonometry. Let's see. Yep, that's it, Jane. Magical writing with personal effect. That's the story. Creative alchemy. Yep. And that's why I keep doing this. So it will expose you, my cadre, to what's going on. And the fact that we're not dead yet, and we're not living in caves, and they haven't gotten rid of 3/4 of the planetary's population, and the fact that what we're being told is global warming due to our car exhaust is not really it. You know, we're going through a harmonic conversion. Remember back in the 80s, the good old harmonic conversion? Well, these things don't just happen like that. It takes a while to get there. And the same thing with 2012. We were going out of, one calendar into a new one. These things don't happen overnight. But there are these little windows of opportunity. And also, there are these things called red flags. 9/11 was one. That was a dark arts ceremony. Those aircraft that hit the, World Trade Towers weren't even aircraft. They were holograms, right? That little flash. That was the missile going into the buildings. Because those exterior walls of the World Trade Center were almost impenetrable. And especially not from a 757 or 767, because those aircraft are like, you know, aluminum thermoses. They have no structural anything. Go Google the NASA aviation website where they show, they remote controlled 707s and 727s, which were much sturdier aircraft than 757, 767, because those aircraft were meant, designed to be lighter and lighter and lighter. The 727 and the DC-9 almost, could fly at the speed of sound, whereas the 757, 767 could only do about 530, and it had to do it at 30,000 feet. It was said that those aircraft came into the World Trade Center doing 530 miles an hour. Well, that's impossible. Only a missile could do that because, the aircraft is designed to go that fast at 30,000 feet where the air is really thin. Down below, where the air is very thick, they were almost on the deck. They were, 600 feet off the ground. And the air is very thick there. And so those big fan jet engines can't suck enough air in to push that airplane that fast. It's kind of thing called physics. And there is a, point after point after point after point in those buildings. If you go look at videos of the World Trade Centers being built, there was a skyscraper inside the core of the World Trade Center, right? And that core, those steel beams were, feet thick of steel. No way. So the only way those buildings came down were from space-based scalar weapons. There's a woman who's a really interesting doctor, Judy something or other, and she, worked on, Star Wars in the 80s and 90s, and she puts the physics out on what happened. And there were so many people with cameras pointed. Every second of those buildings collapse is on somebody's website. So, but because the media is owned, no one listens because it gives the same story. I've been sitting. I don't really watch television, but I've been sitting in front of one this afternoon, and I watched CNN, Fox, MSNBC, CNBC, and a few others, and they all say the same thing, but just a little different. Donnie's the hero, Donnie's the enemy, Donnie's the hero, Donnie's the enemy. Donnie was hired as a TV reality show host. And that's what he's doing. I'm sure he still thinks he's on the set of The Apprentice. And a good 60% of the population of America is brainwashed to think one way or the other. It's a distraction. And so, unless love's co-creation is manifested by the cadre and sung and spoken of by the chorus and brought to by the shock troops of love's co-creation, very soon, as Werner von Braun said, First, we had to be scared by the commies. And he said the commies were never a threat. And my experience in Sarajevo, shooting the Olympics, I was staying at this hotel, fanciest hotel they had. The bathroom was bigger than my apartment in New York City, but they only had 6 squares of toilet paper for me for a whole week. I used them all up in one shot. I called down. I said, "Hey, where's the toilet paper? You saw the 6 squares?" I said, "Yeah, that was it for the week." I said, "What? It's 7 days a week. You're supposed to not do it one day. Hold it." And she goes, "Better not use the towels or else." I said, "What am I supposed to do?" She goes, "Go over to the black market and buy yourself a roll." So I did. It cost $50 American to get one roll of toilet paper that was like, sandpaper. And that's what I knew. The commies were not a threat. If they could not support a roll of toilet paper for the fanciest hotel in all of the communist satellite worlds, because that's what Sarajevo was, then they were not a threat. You know, all the technology they had, we gave them. All the math they had, they gave us. All the food we had, we gave them. All of the strategic metals that we didn't have, they gave us. They were part of the scam of the hidden hand of Hail Hydra. It's been right in front of our faces, and I've been singing about this for 50 years. 60, 70, 70, 80, 80, 90, 90 to 2000, 2000 to 2010. Okay, almost 60 years. Through my art, through my activism, through my having a good time. Very few people really, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. They don't want to change their rotten lives. They get stuck in something. I mean, 15 to 20% of the time I can be a moron and I can get stuck. But the other 80 to 85%, I'm aware. I'm awake. I see what's going on. I see what's going on with my own life. That's why I don't die. Keep coming back because my ascended masters who put me here keep saying, "Hey, you're doing a good job, kid. Keep up." I say, "Yeah, but I'll stop screwing off. You won't die until it's time to go. And then we'll have a big party." Yeah, well, Ink, you're right. It's all a matter of, what is it, when one word means one thing and another means, your heart's in the right place, I think, you know. So, Ink, what are you doing? Feeding the poor? Helping the homeless live in a better place? Starting a theater company, coffee house, any of those things. How about having a Bible revival crew or a book club or do, potluck dinners? Anything to get people together. What's your crew like, Ink, where you are? Good old Blake. It's like Tim. Byron's my man, though. Byron and what's his name? Good old what's his name? Charles Dickens. Melville. Mary Shelley. They're my friends. So, H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds, right? Well, that was one of the myths put out to be put in the psychology of the modern prole. Same with 1984. He wrote those things not, to give people, hey, watch out for that. No, 1984. He was saying this is what's going to happen, and I want it to happen. War of the Worlds was, hey, this is the red flag that's going to come around 2021, right? That's what's going to happen. Independence Day, all of the above. But why am I a smoker? Because you're addicted. Tobacco is the most addictive substance there is, worse than crack. It goes right into those little receptors. You want to stop smoking fish? Well, you can do one or two things. Keep smoking, but every cigarette you have, you bless. Tobacco, that smoke, is a sacrament. Why do you think the indigenous smoked it? Let's smoke the pipe. They smoked the pipe not to like, hey, let's have a beer and smoke the pipe. No, they smoked the pipe to suss things out, talk about the issues of the day of the tribe, you know? And they would smoke and they would pray. I mean, like when you go into a sweat lodge, you prepare tobacco ties. And each tie you pray upon and you tie it up on the ceiling of the sweat lodge. And as you sweat, and you sweat to have a vision on all of the prayers that you have put on the sweat lodge up on the roof. Well, boo, boo, boo. It's, you know, you know, the movie that Steven Spielberg put out there. See the thing fly by. That's the first type of encounter. The second type of encounter, they kind of come by and make themselves known. And the third one is when you're taken away, or you go, happily, they come and they say, hey, you want to go for a ride? They don't do that much more because the folks who did that, they have stepped back a little because the guys who came in who are, has anyone ever seen the movie They Live by Carpenter? I'm amazed that movie was ever made because that's exactly what's going on, gang. Has anyone seen that movie? Any of the eight of you? Did you ever see that movie? Without prayer. Cannabis. Cannabis is good. But, in South Park, they had a character named Towley who was a total stoner. And he'd always go, all I do is smoke a little bit. And that's what I smoke, just a little bit. I don't have any money, I don't have any access, but people know that I enjoy it. And it's really good for my eyes and really good for my joints and all the other things that my age has brought to me. And everybody, if you get to be my age, you're going to have everything I have and probably worse because all of what I have is two things: A, genetics, two, environmental. Right now, I lived a pretty aesthetic life for a good chunk of my life, and that's why I kind of survived. That's why I survived death pretty easily. because I've been meditating all these years. When I kind of conk out, I kind of go into state, and my masters come and kind of say, no, 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 we're not done with you. You got to go back. And I do, because, I agreed to do this. This is, my karmic path, my dharmic path. Well, Fish, someday we have to, sit down and smoke a bowl. Helen Miller. Hank, where do I know that name? It's familiar. Help me with that, if you would. Yeah, a bubbler pipe better. Yeah. Well, we can, come on, Fish. Come on down to the old deep green, and we'll build one together. I built so many sweat lodges. I got it down to a science, and the deep green has so many beautiful poplars around me, and poplar makes a great sweat lodge. The young, they grow up fast like weeds, and so they, the first 5, 6 years of their life, they grow up very tall, 20, 30 feet, and very thin. The trunk is not any bigger than that. So you cut them off at the base at a certain point, so they'll keep growing. And then you take that 20 or 30 foot poplar and you just kind of bend it like that. You get about 12 or 20 of them, and you just do that, right? And then you weave other branches through them. And then you throw a nice, whatever you want to look at, over that. And then if you had buffalo skins, you would throw them on top, but otherwise you can then, just take leaves and put them on top, and then you put more branches, you weave them, and then you get a nice big tarp, and you put that over it, and there you go. You got your sweat lodge. Right? And it's very insulating, and at the same time, it breathes, so it doesn't rot. And that sucker will last you good 10, 15 years before you have to kind of fix it up. Great guy. Your kind of guy. Okay. Give me a little more, remind me what he wrote, what he teaches. Because that name is kind of wrangling around in my head, but I can't put a thought to what that name is. Oh, Ruddy Piper, yes. They live. That's where we are right now. That's what's going on right now. That's what we are in the middle of. That is where we're at, you know? Like I said, I'm amazed Carpenter got to make that film. You love Towley. Just a little bit, just a little bit. Yep. I got that. I got the CBD oil. They sell that in my herbal store. And that works quite well. But it doesn't have any THC, which is something I like. Oh, my favorite way to deal with cannabis is edibles, right? When I went to visit Colorado, I just love that. And I have friends there who are bakers, really good stuff, because it doesn't burn your throat. It gives you a much better high, and it stays with nationally. Yeah. Mucus and body and brain. Yes, mucus is the all around killer, and our environment is just one big mucus ball. You know, putrefaction is key. Yep. And being alkaline, peppermint. Yeah, I always have a bottle of peppermint in my pocket. Yep, I live MK Ultra. Yep. Yeah, our body is our pharmacy. That's true, and that's why shamanism is because you basically through the shamanistic frame to set your body's frequencies in places that the only reason I can walk on my legs is that I shamanically set the frequencies through my bones like a tuning fork so I can walk. My podiatrist is like amazed I can walk because I got no bones there are these 9 little bones that connect your ankle to your feet. Well, I don't have those anymore. They all kind of turned into goo. Hey, Fugnuts, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Well, that's the photonic energy I speak of. In the beginning was the word, yeah, logos. So there is sound before light. Yep, frequency. Yep. And go do the etymology of logos. See where that comes from. And the word God. Go look at that. And Lord and light. You know, because in the beginning all things were dark. That's where God was. And he wasn't called God either. He was love's co-creation. God is Lucifer. The Sumerian term for Lucifer was God. And it's etymology. Yep, that's it. Etymology of logos. Yep. Oh. Anyway, so like I said, is anyone gardening yet? Is anyone bringing food to old folks, feeding the homeless? Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's like anything else. You just start doing it. You have to, set the 4 directions. Set the. It's basically, a Buckminster Fuller thing that was developed about 1 million years ago before Buckminster Fuller. There is no new idea. It is quite easy, really is. The other thing I used to love to use was I love I was an electrician. I always had tons of PVC pipe. You know, and so we can use those. Yeah. Yep. Incompleteness. All you have to do is, my whole little thing is I start something, I work on it, I finish it. And then I go on to the next. Good. Starter soil. Have your good old compost going. My compost pile in the deep green, I dump all my food, not within the ring of my campsite. And all the animals come over and pick through it and poop on it and eat it and move it around. And I put it on top of a big tarp. And so every spring, I come back and I have, 50, 60 pounds of amazing composted soil. And the animals have done it for me, right? Right. take the tarp and I kind of drag it over to my where my garden is, and I put it on top of that, and I have a raised garden, and I've been building my soil for years. And the last few years, since I couldn't walk, I have not been able to do that. And the other sad thing was the people in my neighborhood who I used to garden with, they don't they've kind of gotten addicted to food stamps and macaroni and cheese. Let's see, what's this? What's Jane think? Charity begins at home, and I'm a caregiver here. I didn't meet many people until soon. Broke my leg, so I'm spent. Yeah, well, I can identify with not being able to walk, but you keep at it. Hey, I get around pretty good these days. Spring greening. The thing I love about gardening, you put this little seed in the ground, and then that's all you do, and then it grows. And I usually when I do a garden, I stay in that neck of the woods. I don't go away, and I come by and I talk to the plants, and if it's dry, I may water it a little bit. If it needs shade, I do that, and I take care of it, but mostly with just love, right? It does everything on its own. And then the seed pops out of the ground and it grows and it grows and it grows. And you just kind of make sure it has enough earth and water. You don't even have to, go nuts on the weeding. You know, just you let the weeds grow if they grow, but just not right on top of the plant. And it works out pretty good. You don't need any chemicals. You don't need any of the above. So that's why I like gardening. And then you can eat it. But this summer that I really spent most of the summer in the deep green, there's so many berries growing there: blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, wineberries, and they come up at different times of the spring, summer, and even fall. And so I had plenty of berries to eat. And in the forest, there are a number of greens that grow that you just kind of clip with the scissors, and they're just like lettuce. You know, I put them in a bowl, put some oil and vinegar on them, a little seasoning, and there you went. That's kind of what I ate this summer. Well, how I grow sprouts. Um, I get a food. I go to my neighborhood co-op and I say, "So you got any buckets?" Because they get all kinds of food in buckets, right? Usually gallon bucket or so, right? And so they, oh yeah, we got a ton out back. We usually throw them out. Okay, can I have, five, six, 10, 20, or oh, we sell them for $1. Okay, I'll take five. And I take them home, clean them out, and I get the tops with them, and I cut out the top. I still keep the rim, but I cut out the top, and I get some nylon, you know, stuff that you would put on a screen door, nylon screen, right? And you put it so, and at the co-op, they sell all kinds of sprout seeds, mung beans, you name it, and well, your favorite, you get a pound or so for $3 or $4, and you put in about a cup of seeds into this food grade bucket. You put the screen over it. You put the lid on it so it holds the screen down, and then you put water, right? And you slosh it around, and then you dump it out, and that's why that screen there, and then the seeds are all wet, and then you kind of hit the bottom of the bucket so all the seeds kind of fall down, and then you kind of put it in the sun, not directly, but so it has light, and then every other day you rinse the seeds out, and within 5 to 8 days you have a full bucket of green sprouts, a ton. So you put in this half a cup, about that much seeds, and or even less, like that much seeds, and you have a full bucket of greens. I mean, from the bottom of the bucket to that screen, it's all like trying to push itself out. And that's to be used. So for about an investment about $3, you can feed yourself. You do it during the winter too, if you're warmish. Have a place, and it's amazing. I've done that for years. But it's like anything else. So I'm kind of homeless, so I'm never. And I do things like that around John, and I think you might have heard him talk about the kitchen that when we did the you know what you call it, the Johnny Chump dueling live chats, his and mine. Um, he kept calling the kitchen I make our food in the slop kitchen, right? And that's only because it's ancient. He bought a new stove, a new dishwasher, and at least I clean the dishes every time I use them downstairs. And it kind of takes them up. So I mean, like we go from I bought a whole bunch of dishes and silverware and all kinds of stuff, and then they end up upstairs. So I have nothing to cook with. I got no plates to put it on. So I had to start getting plastic spoons and styrofoam cups to put the food in. But when I, do things like try to do sprouting, he kind of thinks it's disgusting. So that kind of food you should buy already made at the co-op. And the co-op in our little town 20 years ago I was part of, and it was really great. I was in an old kind of funked out A&P, or no, it was a Mickey Mac, and it was a handful of us, and trucks would drop off 100-pound bags of this and that, and we'd split it up into smaller things and sell it. And we would sell everything, and we went around to the farmers and got stuff from the farmers, not from some company. And and those were all guys, and they didn't have the money to have chemicals, and they just kind of had large gardens, and that's how it went. And it was very cheap, meaning you could buy 5, 6 pounds of nuts and this and that. You could get out of the co-op for 5, 10 bucks, right? If you worked on it, if you were helped unload the truck. If you just bought the food there, and maybe you could get the same amount for maybe 20 bucks. Now, the co-op is like the most expensive place, and the food is, they get it from the same wholesalers that the supermarket gets. It's the exact same stuff. I see the same boxes in the supermarket as they are in the co-op, and that's the problem. You know, people have lost their integrity. You know, and it's all image and no substance. And the substance comes from the community, from that, folks that you do things with. And when we garden, we had 10 gardens in the city of Roanoke. Now we have none of them. They've all, because the 10 or so people who started doing it, and went off into other neighborhoods to, grow food for these people and got them into growing it. Um, well, those folks like me, I got a little older. I can't do that. And I mostly had to do it for those people. Now, those gardens, we got the city to give us the plots and da da da. They're still there, but nobody gardens there. Anyone could go garden there if they wanted to, but they don't, you know. And that's the kind of things I'm seeing, that no one's doing anything. And they're going to be played very soon. I mean, that's what 9/11 was. It was a B test. See if people would believe it. I mean, The neocons basically caused that all to happen and basically destroyed, you know, um, Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, He gave all his people free home, free education, free food, and he built a multi-billion-dollar aquifer. He had the cleanest water on the planet. And the first thing the U.S. Air Force, NATO, did was bomb it. So now they're drinking, dirty water. He did all these things to show Africa, hey, you can do this yourself. I'll help you, right? And the reason they went after Muammar and they went after Saddam, I mean, both those guys were put in there by the, you know, hidden hand and the powers that shouldn't be. But they didn't want to use the dollar as the oil de facto currency. They wanted gold for their oil, you know. So, and this little dance that China's doing with Donnie is that, for the last 30 years, China has been making all our stuff for us for nothing. We give them treasury bonds, worthless pieces of paper. Nothing backs up our currency whatsoever. And the minute, that BRIC crew, and that's why Brazil is doing great. All these countries that were trying to create their own currency, and Venezuela was one of them. There's more oil in Venezuela than any place else. And we're going to have a war with them any minute now, for no reason at all. Oh, the Arizona tragedy was the moron who was leading it. He kept those people in there until, and none of them had any experience. Most of those people had never gone to a sweat. So he cooked that thing up to way hotter than it should. It's the amount of hot stones you put in it. And the bottom line is, you put your lodge and you put it on the ground. And when you heat in the center, you put, hot, you have a fire outside the lodge and you heat the stones in, and the firekeeper brings in a stone. But you don't stack it up. You don't put 100 stones. You don't have any more than 5 or 6 stones at a time. The moron in Arizona had 100 stones in there. It wasn't the air currents, but the bottom line is you're lying on moist, cold earth, and the air is the heat rises, so the heat goes up, and so you're lying on the earth. The earth is maybe even in the summertime because of where I am. Yeah, in Arizona, it's a bit dry. Where I am, it's very moist. So that earth is like a cool refrigerator, right? So you're lying on the ground, and from the ground up about 20 inches, the air is maybe 80 degrees if you got 5 to 10 stones in there. Above that, um, it's another 20 degrees warmer. At the very top, maybe it's 120. But this moron had his lodge almost 200 degrees. Like I said, right? That guy's a moron. He had no, it's like I learned acupuncture, but I don't practice it because I realized energetically you do have to be Chinese to do it. I mean, you can put that needle in that RN55 spot that will, make sure your shoulder doesn't, hurt. But right there, just, a hair is for your kidney point. One of the many, many kidney points are. So if you kind of twitch that kidney point, you might, start having kidney stones, right? So that's why I practiced shiatsu, shiatsu is like acupuncture, but through you didn't have needles, you did massage, And when I was a practitioner of healing arts, and again, doctor do no harm, you I would first muscle test people. What's wrong with you? I take a listen to them. I'd listen to all of their maladies, what hurt, what was bothering, how they, you know, and then I'd spell them, and then I'd have them walk, and I could see through their body language, and then I would have them do a certain exercise, and then I could see how they would respond by their tells. And then I would put them on my table and I'd do cranial sacral. Right? And I would, balance them. And then I would muscle test different parts of them. And, that's how I could figure out what was going on. And, I would, read their palms, do their cards, their runes. And then we would go into state, And when I go into state with someone, meaning I'm right there in your library. I mean, I'm right there in your library when you do it over the digital device. Way too hot. Yep. Yep. Like a parabolic dish. Yep. Well, if you do something good, you should stick with what you do good. If you're not so good, well, maybe you shouldn't do it. You know, adept and appropriate technologies because pretty much everything is technology. And we just need to study what's adept and what's appropriate. That's it. And all things, first and foremost, are aesthetic. So, gang, what does the word aesthetic come to you? What when I say the word aesthetic, what pops into your head? Yeah, I like that. Hey, Jay Dream. How something is perceived. Very good. Aesthetic. Jane, what Jay right there is aesthetic is not so much artful. It's how it is perceived, you know? Artful, that's a pretty general thing, right? Artful deals with technique. Artful deals with, almost what people would critique. Oh, that stroke looks like this, right? Artful, you know, also is a spiritual term. But how something is perceived and perception is this kind of two-way radio beam. How you perceive it and how it's sent. That's perception. That's perceived. So the aesthetic base is how we perceive our life, how we perceive our surroundings, how we perceive what we want to do with our life and our surroundings. What's unbelievable, Nick? Ooh, is this unbelievable? This is kind of aesthetic. It has representation. This is my soul right here in my hand. This flower has been speaking to me all day long. I've been carrying it around with me. And it's been interesting to see the kind of response I get by people go, oh, that's pretty. Oh, where'd you get that? Oh, just carrying it around evoked a great deal from a number of people. And that is what I want the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technologies to do. So, Nick, come on, tell me what's unbelievable. What does a rose say? A rose is a rose by any other name. A principle underlying and guiding the work of a particular artist and artistic movement, the Cubist aesthetic. Okay. You know, you did you get that out of Wikipedia or dictionary? Art textbook? What did Cartier-Bresson say about the word aesthetic? What did Monet say about the word aesthetic? What did the Bauhaus say about the word aesthetic? Bauhaus. Yep. Bauhaus was an interesting group of folk in Germany and in Europe um, between the 1890s and the First World War. And they saw aesthetics as the key to bringing whatever humanity can bring to, yes, like Terence McKenna. Yep. Terence McKenna was another interest. He'd fit right in with the Bauhaus, so the Bauhaus was this beautiful aesthetic group of people, right? And what was very strange was that the Nazis used it as their aesthetic base, and then perverted it by sprinkling in all this propaganda and also bringing forth. Oh, the propaganda was through logos, the words they used. And the speeches that you should go see the Nuremberg trials because there were these open fields, and at one end, in the four directions, they would have these giant monolithic columns of stone, just like from 2001, those kind of monoliths, not like Roman columns, but just these. And they would hang these tremendously long Nazi flags, red banner, white circle, black swastika, right? And depending on which way the sun was coming at that time of day is how Adolf would show up on the stage. And so they would tell everyone, "Oh, the Fuhrer is going to speak to us, at 11 a.m. in the morning." And people would show up at 6, and they'd have them stand there, just stand there. And he wouldn't come out until, 6, 7 o'clock when the sun was setting. And he would come out from the columns that the sun was setting behind them. So these gigantic rays of sunlight were coming, and they would be cut by these gigantic monoliths with the flags, and the light would be coming through the flags. And Adolf, this little teeny Adolf, would walk out, and his shadow would shoot across, you know, a group of people who've been standing there for the last 12, 18 hours. And not only that, over the PA system, they would be pumping out a very extreme low frequency vibration. And it was like fingernails on a blackboard. And people would be like, and they'd be there for hours and hours and hours in the sun, and if they left, they get a black mark and couldn't come back. So people would collapse and die and all the above. And the people would just stand there. And then Adolf would come out, and his shadow would be shot across the crowd of like 200,000 people. And the guy, as soon as Adolf showed up and his shadow shot across the people, they'd hit the switch and it'd turn off that frequency, and everyone would orgasm. And Wutmuller, she was a filmmaker, and she created that aesthetic. She was his aesthetic, and she was part of the Bauhaus. Well, he burnt all the rest of all the books and all the artists, but he liked her, and he would do that. He would pick an individual that represented a certain kind of dynamic that was very powerful, and he'd kill everyone of that thing and keep one or two of them and use them. So go look at her films; they're quite famous. The Nuremberg trials, and that will give you a little idea of what aesthetics can do. Okay, so that's about 1 hour and 3 minutes and 3 seconds. According to DNP. Bible. Eh, lovely synchronicity. Yep. Every time I look up at that little counter, it does that. I like that. Anyway, I'm kind of, that was creepy aesthetics. Not creepy so much, powerful. Um, the aesthetic dynamic wasn't creepy. What they did with it was creepy, right? And it was beyond creepy. Creepy is no, that was way beyond creepy. That was Luciferian. Creepy is like Halloween. Creepy is the funhouse mirror. No, this was Luciferian. This was magic. A lot deeper than magic. Yep. Creepy is how the spaghetti bowl works. Yep. Or how the toilet bowl works. How that swirl goes woo, 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 woo. And then if you're on the other side of the planet, it goes the other way. Over my head. Yep, that's where you got to think about things. Overstanding, not understanding. Anyway, I hope you all had a very nice day. I was just in this little room here most of the day thinking and watching television. Because I don't watch television at all. So whenever I have the opportunity, I look at it shamanically and I see what they're doing. and they want to. There's going to be a war soon, and probably a number of them. I mean, there are already a bunch going on now: Syria, ISIS, Yemen, bunch in Africa, and what Israel wants is Israel's doing everything it can to get Iran barbecued. You know, so and in the United States, they're getting states to pass laws so people who work for that state can't, say they're not going to buy something made in Israel. They'll lose their job if they say that. That's kind of what happened with South Africa. Why South Africa fell is that a good portion of the liberal-minded folk, what is it when you don't buy something? There's a term for it when you. It's not like, oh, I forget what it's called, but you don't buy it. I don't like them, so I'm not going to buy anything they make, right? And it really put South Africa in a bind, and that's one of the things that caused apartheid to fall apart. He went to move, but my husband is unwilling to leave his family, and bringing up the idea of getting out is completely foreign to them. Boycott, that's the word. Thank you, Jane. That's the word. And the first law that, who's that? That puts in the Senate. Um, First law that was passed by the Senate was making it a federal offense to boycott anything from Israel. I thought, you had your First Amendment rights to, you know. Anyway, I don't really care. I mean, I actually love Israel. I've visited a number of times, but that was in the 60s and 70s. I was on a kibbutz. It was, I love living that way. And when I was in Israel, more than a good, I don't, I didn't know this, there was at least 40% of the citizens of Israel were Palestinians, were Arabs, were Muslims. And it's like whether you were Irish or German in America, and everyone in their neighborhoods, there weren't ghettos of this type of people. No, everyone kind of lived together. And that was beautiful. I loved Israel. I love the spirit of Israel, right? And the one thing that was a little distracting, and not only to me, but I wasn't a citizen of Israel. I just went to I studied to be a rabbi, right? So my rabbi took me to Israel, you know, and there's nothing better than to have a rabbi, a well-respected rabbi, and I was his. He would constantly introduce me as he goes, "This is this is my scholar of the Kabbalah." He's a mathematician of Kabbalah, and he would take me to all the old rabbis, and all of them were upset with how, and this was in the 60s and the 70s, how their government was becoming Zionist, not Hebrew. And that's where I first heard about the Khazarian mafia and the Ananashki. And, it wasn't anti Semitic because this was being told to me by greatly respected and revered rabbis who I was studying with. So, that's what aesthetics are about, gang. Seeing which way the wind blows. Okay, here it is. We're getting to be 1 hour, 10 minutes, and when it hits 10 seconds, I'm going to say goodnight because I'm getting tired. I'm going to go drink some water. And I'm already asleep. Boycott. Yep, that's the word. Yep, learn from the best, teach the rest. Yeah, that's kind of what your sensei L. Bob is doing. Learn from the best and teaching the rest. Teaching the adept cadre. Anyway, gang, I love you. Sleep tight. Don't let the big bugs bite. And it's good to see some new folk come to the chorus. You know, there are a number of folk here who are like Nick S. J. Dream. And whether you've been in the chorus before, sometimes your sensei Al Bob sees everything, but often doesn't notice. And especially when he's asleep like he is right now. It's kind of interesting. I'm asleep, guys. Let's see. I'm asleep. You know. Yeah, I'm talking in my sleep. It's interesting. It's not difficult, but it's a talent. I'm in state. You know, and I'm asleep. This is a conscious dream I'm having, talking to you guys. You know. And if you were, in state yourself, you could piggyback right into this and go, wow, he's freaking asleep and talking to us. Well, remember, keep practicing. Go into state 5, 6, 10 times a day. You know, empty out your anger into your Akashic record and then go back and look at why you were angry. That's the beauty of doing that. Not just getting it out of you, but looking at what the causes and effects were. And by seeing it in your Akashic record, you have a perspective. Okay. You know, Jefferson and my good buddy Ben Franklin would do what I'm doing. Would go to sleep and meditate and be conscious, and they would hold things like a bunch of coins or stones, and then when they would really fall asleep, their hand would open, and they would drop the coins or stones on the floor, and they'd make a noise. They'd wake up, like right now, I'm waking up because the phone is about to fall out of my hand. So that's why I've been moving it around. Okay, I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake. But that was fun to be totally asleep. So, guys, I love you. You stay well, and I don't know about tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be a messy, busy. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Might talk to you in the evening, but if you don't see me tomorrow, start looking at the other 400. I've gotten more than 400 of these shows. I've done more than 400 since May, and I've done the majority of them since October. Hey, Fletch. Yeah. Okay. Good. Take it slow. Okay, in about 10 seconds, I'm going to say goodnight. So I'm dropping out again. I'm just going to drop the phone if I don't go. Yep.